and the various applications that you can use for the tourism and events industry. So thank you very much, Luca and Joseph, for organizing the session. And we have a great panel today. And I hope I get the family names right, because I didn't practice them very well. But we have Maksim, Izmaylov and Andy Creeze with us today. So what I'd like to do in the beginning, if Maksim, if you could just introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do, and then we'll go to Addy, and then we can start the session. So Maksim, welcome.
Thank you, James. Pleasure to be here. So my name is Maksim Izmaylov. I go by Max. It's just easier for everyone. And I've been working on Web3 in travel since 2016 or so. I believe we sort of started talking about the notion of how Web3 could help travel companies to do all sorts of different things. Yeah, I think we were one of the first companies, if not the first, probably we were, again, started talking about it way back when, 7 years ago. And I'm a founder of a company that's called Tree, where we helped travel companies to do distribution without intermediaries. And we have customers such as American Airlines, Ernst & Young, a few other big companies as well. So particularly in the area of business travel. But we, over the course of the years, we've done a lot of experimentation. So I would be more than happy to talk about all of those different things that we've done.
Thank you, Maksim. Addy, tell us a bit about yourself and what you do.
Pleasure to meet everyone. Thanks for having me here. My name is Addy. You pronounced my surname pretty right, so thanks, James. Yeah, I've been in the crypto community since 2014, joining Cointelegraph back in the days, which is a media publication, one of the biggest crypto media publication in the world right now. Since 2016, I've been into events and founded and organized Block Show, also powered by Cointelegraph, which was one of the biggest crypto and blockchain events up to 2020 before COVID came in Asia and Europe, right? And since last year, I'm into building a Web3 event tech company. So yeah, we are building different Web3 instruments for event organizers to increase their revenue, right? To engage their communities and do stuff like that. And just as a quick add-on, the first time I sold tickets as tokens was in 2017, but obviously it wasn't the right time, because in a month or so, people who bought these tickets asked me when am I listing these tokens on the centralized exchanges. So obviously they just wanted to flip them. So yeah, right now the market is different. Everyone understands what token is and what NFTs are. So yeah, I guess this is the right timing. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think before we dive a bit deeper into the tourism, travel and events area, I'm going to ask Maksim just to kick this off. Maksim, what is Web3? Give us a kind of roundup and flavor of what that means. And then what I'll do is go over to Addy for a bit more on that.
Web3 to me is a technology that really empowers individuals and companies, as opposed to pretty much all the other technologies where there is a single sort of entity that controls everything. Again, take email as an example. All of your email is probably Google controls it. Google can read it. Google can do all sorts of things about it. Google can kick you out if they wanted to, et cetera, right? So a third party controls information that should belong to you. Web3 gives you the power to control your data, to control your assets, such as cryptocurrencies or NFTs and stuff like that. And really, yeah, take control over your digital life. This is the first technology that gives you power over your digital presence.
Good. And Addy, what do we mean by decentralization? Because that's the kind of the big thing with Web3 is it's all decentralized. So if I didn't know what that meant, you know, I'm like your granny. Explain it like I'm your grandmother.
Sure. So before decentralization, just what Maksim said, I fully agree with that. I would say just it's Web3 for me is like the change of ownership, right? And as it's an open database, it's just an interoperable thing, right? So if you own something and as it's an open database, you build products based on that. So it's just easier and it's much more scalable. As for decentralization, so I mean it's a pretty complicated topic because right now there are not that many fully decentralized Web3 products, right? So most of them are half decentralized and are so-called Web 2.0, right? But decentralization means for me that, I mean, if we are talking about owning things and ownership, means that you are the owner of that, right? You control your data, you control your ownership. And let's say if we take Facebook as an example, right? And all of the data there is controlled by Facebook and owned by Facebook. Everything, all of your data that you have there. If we take a decentralized social platform like Lens, for example, there is a Lens.xyz, if I remember that correctly, it's a decentralized social platform. All of the information there is controlled and owned by you. So this is decentralization for me.
And then where is that data held on how is that data held? Because obviously everything's held on a Facebook server in 2.0, but in 3.0, do I hold all my data on my laptop, or where is it exactly?
So you hold it on the blockchain, right? If you wanna go deeply into tech, I don't think I'm the most right person because I mean I'm not a developer or stuff like that. But in a very simple words, instead of a centralized Amazon server fully controlled by the owner of the server, you just hold it on the blockchain, right? And yeah, and you only have access to your part of the data, right? With the security code or the seed phrase. So simple as that.
So Maksim, can you expand on that? Just, you know, with some examples, maybe.
You know, there was a number of projects in the last few years. I would even say 10 years or so. And one of the founders, one of the creators of the World Wide Web, Tim Berners-Lee, of course, right? He had a project like that was called Solid Pods. I think it's still active. I don't think it's successful just yet. But the idea is that, of course, as a user of the internet, if you want to prevent a third party from controlling your data, controlling your digital life, of course, you have to hold, you know, that data on your own device, preferably, or perhaps on a third-party server, but you have full ownership of that. That is, the data is encrypted, no one can mingle it. They potentially shouldn't even be able to delete it. But that is the ideal use case scenario. And, you know, I can see a number of problems with that. Again, starting from it's hard to do, and ending, I guess, with that there is not really a demand from users. That is, users do not desire complete ownership of their data just yet. And again, there's a number of reasons for that. Perhaps they're not educated. Technically, it's hard for them to do, which still, you know, we see a number of problems with user experience of blockchain or Web3 related technologies, which hopefully we will solve soon.
So then what is the promise of Web.3 then, given that, you know, the users may not have that technical know-how to, or that even the demand or want to keep their data separately? I mean, why Web.3? What is that promise? What's it going to do for me? Somebody's not that.
Yeah, you know, the answer here is It's quite simple, I would say, but if the listeners and viewers of this would go a little bit deeper, would want to go a little bit deeper, there's this book that's called The Sovereign Individual that people from the Web3, from the blockchain community refer to quite a lot. Some people call it the blockchain Bible. That book was written in 1997, I think, so
Wow.
way back when. But there, the writers of that book, the authors of that book, they talk about, I guess, two strata of the society, right? So there is the sovereign individual person who desires, they really want to control their data, control their assets, control whatever it is that they want to control, right? And then there's just everybody else. So Web3 is a promise for this sovereign individual, for this new type of human being, right? Truly to control those things. If you want that, Web3 allows you to do that. But of course, in order for you to start wanting to do that, you have to have some sort of motivation. That again, a lot of people, I guess, in the blockchain space, being early miners, having lots and lots of Bitcoins or Ether or stuff like that, right? They have that motivation. But a person on the street, I'm remembering I was at one of the blockchain conferences a few months ago in Berlin, and I just looked around in the sponsor room, right? At all of the companies who were there, and there was not a single one, not a single project, sort of as a person from the street would want to use. It was all about speculation, flipping coins, NFTs, and stuff like that. And so, in order again for mass adoption of Web3, I think we have to give people on the street a real reason to want to control their data, their resources.
Mm-hmm. Okay, interesting. But then just talking about the blockchain idea and what you do, Addy, in terms of the ticketing and the events side of things. I mean, what is the promise there for the kind of user like me? And, you know, why is it important for businesses? So we've got two levels there. We've got the ticket buyer, and then we've got the event organizer like yourself. I mean, what's the promise in that context?
Sure. So we were talking about ownership, right? So ownership plays a very big role in events and ticketing industry. I don't know if you've heard about that, but maybe a few weeks ago, Ticketmaster, which is the biggest ticketing company in the world, and obviously in the US, they have announced like all of this token gating thing, where if you're the owner of a certain NFT, you get more privileges when buying a ticket than just ordinary people that don't have those NFTs, right? And then after actually purchasing these tickets, we have more privileges like better seats, right? Or I don't know, like maybe some more merchandise and stuff like that. They receive different perks and bonuses after the event, right? So based on that, we can just, make a very easy conclusion that in ticketing specifically, right, a ticket, a digital ticket, which we used to think about, right, which is just a QR code, basically, right, is let's call it, so NFT ticket is a digital ticket on steroids, right? So it's I would say a reincarnation or a new birth of a physical ticket, which we used to use like tens or hundreds of years ago, right? So these tickets were real like collectibles, and they were designed well, so they meant something, right? So if we're talking specifically about NFT ticketing, with bringing ownership back to the buyers, right, to the attendees, you actually just raise the value of it, right? And imagine a very simple case, like you go to a music concert of your favorite music band, right? And it's the goodbye tour. This is their last tour, and you have that NFT ticket, and the value of that is so much more than the value of just a simple QR code, right? And yeah, so I would say that Web3 brings ownership back to the events industry, to the ticket industry, and it helps a lot with building real communities, right? Because when you understand that you are the real owner of an NFT, there are, for example, other 1,000 people like that. That's a community, right? That's already a community, which is a pretty important thing for promoting things, for selling things. It's some kind of a culture. So, yeah.
So how can the event organizer actually mobilize that community to sell tickets to other events or things like that? Because obviously they'll have an email address or something. Well, where does the tokenization come in on that? Is that going back to the Ticketmaster example?
So as for the email address, they do have the email address. I've mentioned at the very beginning that there is a so-called Web 2.5 thing, yeah, where you, as a user, sometimes you don't really need to have a wallet, right? So if you just starting, right, you can actually buy this ticket just with your email address, right? And then either a platform or yourself, you should educate yourself and register a Web3 wallet and maybe transfer the NFT from the centralized storage of the event platform to your own wallet, right? So there are different onboarding tools built for that, right? So talking about emails, definitely event organizers have the emails, so that's not a real problem. Your second question was about who holds the data, so who holds the NFT, or
yeah.
Okay, so if you have a wallet, your NFT is in your wallet. So you just see that and you have all of the info about that. And the organizer doesn't have access to that. So even if, for example, you buy a concert ticket to, I don't know, to Ed Sheeran in London, right? And suddenly, I don't know, he cancels the concert. At least you still have this NFT. And and no one can take it from you, right? And as for the communication, it's simple as that. You either communicate via email, or there are different tools right now which are in the being built, communication wallet tools. So you can actually communicate through the wallet, right? You can send notifications, you can send different stuff to people that have wallets. So I mean, it's still in process. This infrastructure is in the process of being built, but it's there, and it's just a matter of time when it takes off.
Okay. So let me talk a little bit about, I think in my humble opinion, about a slightly better example where I was reading in the news a few months ago. There was this big scandal, I think, in during one of the football matches. Don't remember where exactly, and it doesn't matter really. Where a lot of tickets that the fans showed up with were fake. So they bought it secondhand somewhere online, and those tickets were not valid. And so that problem could really be solved with Web3. But again, only in the case where users who buy those tickets would control that data. That is, they would educate themselves about how to create a crypto wallet, how to make it safe and secure, and stuff like that. And again, in my humble opinion, if we're speaking of memorabilia, and if I go to a concert or a show or a match, and if I have that physical ticket and I can put it on the wall of my house, that's not a real problem. I think in Web3, a lot of the time we're imagining problems that users have, and I don't think users really have the problem of, oh, I don't know how to physically control the ticket that I got, at the concert that I went to. No, of course, it's right here. It's in my, I don't know, on my wall or somewhere on the shelf or something like that. And again, speaking of community. Communities are great, but do concert goers or fans of Ed Sheeran, do they have a problem of organizing into communities online? I think that problem is a bit of made up. But there are really, really interesting problems and really important problems. that could prevent, again, intermediation in the space, in the event space. You know, Ticketmaster is a horrible company. You know, again, just Google on Ticketmaster and horrible company, maybe, or something like that. And you will
I
find
think
hundreds
let's leave
of stories.
out. I think let's leave out, you know, any kind of things like that, because you know, that puts us into a different kind of hot water. That is your opinion, but in any case,
Yeah,
what
of course,
I mean,
it's my opinion.
one thing I've just thought about, that I'm kind of going off script here, and maybe you can help me, Maksim, is there tension between the platforms, the 2.0 platforms, and the people that are advocating 3.0 platforms, and how the the users are moving from 2 to 3, and what are they desperate to keep them on 2.0? Do they see this people owning their own data as a big problem? And maybe you can relate that to the travel industry.
It's a problem of power. I mean, if you control the data, you can, like, you have the power, right? And it's like asking whether I don't know, a tyrant that wants to have all power in their hands. Is there a tension between that tyrant and then the community that he governs? And community, of course, desires to distribute that power. Really, Web3 is, to me, akin to democracy. You know, again, it's a technology that allows us for democratic institutions online, on many layers, sort of the sense of that word, right? Of course, there is tension, and of course, again, in my particular case and in my particular company, we started this company with a notion, or this organization, I'm going to say, because it's not really a for-profit company, right? With the notion that travel is broken on so many levels. Why? Due to centralization of power. There are only a few companies in the world that control most of travel transactions. That creates all sorts of problems, and those problems start with, you know, pricing. They take very, very high commission fees. They prevent innovation because they create closed protocols. They don't allow those protocols or other companies to access those protocols very easily. There's the gatekeeping aspect to that, et cetera, et cetera. And so if we put stuff online truly in a democratic environment where all sorts of different companies can work together, collaborate, create new tools, and all of that is going to be based on open protocols, we envisioned in 2016, you know, a better world for the travel industry. And that logic applies to any other industry you can imagine here. You know, speaking of events industry, same thing, just a few intermediaries. Ticketmaster is just one of the two. It's my opinion, of course. And
yeah. So, but just let's take an example of something like Airbnb or Booking.com, where they have lots of private owners on there that are renting out their property. What would be the advantage to them of going with a Web 3.0 solution as opposed to sitting on those other platforms? You know, the kind of the old 2.0s.
Yeah. Again, there's a range of problems, starting with prices. Airbnb, Booking.com, they take very high commission fees. And again, ending really with the ownership of your account with Airbnb or Booking. And again, if you go online and look up Airbnb and deplatforming, you will find many, many interesting stories where user accounts were, or users were basically kicked out of the platform for seemingly no reason and without due process, right? So that could be prevented.
Okay, great. Can I move back to Addy now and talk about DAOs? And that's an abbreviation that I've seen before, but I'm not sure what it means. So I'd like you to explain that to me, and how could that be used in the event space, benefits, challenges, etc.
Sure. If you don't mind, I'll get back a little bit to
Yeah, sure.
Maksim's comment, and yeah, I will organically come to the DAOs and how they're used in the event space. So regarding the fraud in the event industry, so Web3 definitely helps reduce fraud, right, and all that kind of stuff. But if I mean, I've been talking to lots of different ticketing companies, from small to big ones, like with millions of monthly users. And the fact is that fraud is not really a big problem in the ticketing industry. Yes, it does exist, and with different biggest occasions and events like NFL final or stuff like that, right? It can happen, and of course it will go to news, but in fact it doesn't exist. So there is not a huge problem. And plus with Web3, I mean, to be totally honest and frank, it's still about education. So yes, it will help reduce the fraud, but if a person is not, I mean, educated well enough, right, and he doesn't or she doesn't care, he will still be cheated, right? So that's the thing. And the second thing is about communities and events. So I totally agree, yes, that yeah, there is no problem for fans, for example, to gather together somewhere on Telegram group or WhatsApp or Discord or somewhere, right? But that's not what Web3 is really solving with events, in my personal opinion, and what I see on the market. So the main thing here is, and I've mentioned Ticketmaster for a reason, because they've done their first use case with a pretty popular music band. And what they've seen is that the fans were eager to get those NFTs, right, in order to get additional privileges, because they kind of understood what's the thing. And basically around 10% of all of the fans they had did it, which caused the increase of revenue and stuff like that, the increase of engagement, because they do understand what it is about, right? And they have privileges and perks. So that's what NFT is really about right now in events. It's about increasing revenue. It's about increasing engagement with your super fans or with your loyal fans, right? So that's what event industry is really missing right now. And every event organizer is, I mean, challenging every single year and every single event to kind of keep his community or her community engaged, right? And give back to super fans for their loyalty. So that's what really, like, for me, NFTs in events are right now. Talking about DAO, so in the very, I mean, DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. I mean, it's a very complicated kind of a name for that, right? And I don't think that it will be used in the future. But in reality, it's just an organization that is managed by, sorry, that is managed by a certain amount of people, right? Who have actually like a vote, right? So simple as that. And their vote is guaranteed by the token. So in order to vote, you need to spend a token, or you need to have a certain token, like an NFT or stuff like that. So it's simple as that. And it just gives you the real decentralized management system. Let's call it this way. In events, it can work in different ways. Right now, the main thing for a DAO, for a DAO in events, in my personal opinion, and that's what we are focusing on when building a platform, is actually, it's a way for engagement, for engaging super fans. So let's say if you got an NFT like on Ticketmaster, right? If you got this NFT, then you have additional privileges that I talked about a few minutes ago. And one of these privileges is voting. So you can vote for a song that will be played during a concert of your favorite artist, or you choose a city, or you choose the merchandise or stuff like that. So you can influence what's going on. And you do it in a decentralized way because you have an NFT and you have that right. And with this right, people vote, people make decisions and influence what's going on at the event. So right now it's simple as that. And yeah, I don't think it will go further. There is another point here where organizers can organize events in a decentralized way. So for example, there are like 10 people, all of them have votes, then they have a treasury where all of the revenues kept, right? And they actually vote for different decisions on where to spend money, you know, how much money maybe give back as profit, maybe some amount of this give back to the attendees, stuff like that. So yeah, in events, it's used either to organize an event or to engage these UP events.
I think that's yeah, it's a kind of progression on the idea that Microsoft introduced probably 10 years ago, the Young Conference, where they relied on collective intelligence to create an agenda for a meeting or a conference. But how do you get the tokens? So would you be awarded tokens for each ticket purchase, or would you buy tokens like you do in a computer game? I mean, how would you? Explain the token for the idea.
So it depends on the economy of the exact event and how the event will build it, right? But it's very simple. So how you can do it as an organizer. So for example, you sell NFT as tickets, right? And those people that buy these NFT tickets, right, by holding these NFT tickets, they receive a right to receive tokens, right? So for example, an organizer can airdrop those tokens to NFT holders and say that with these tokens, you can vote, right? And yeah, that's simple as that. You can see it happening right now with all of the airdrops around.
Okay, great. Well, that was a good explanation. I now know what a DAO is. So that's, again, like another community within the Web.3 idea. Maksim, in travel, do you use DAOs much? Is that something that is part of what you do at your company, or is that not relevant to the travel tourism space?
It is relevant, of course. It is, you know, as Addy's saying, it's all about education, because you know, I don't see DAOs. And for me, what is a DAO? It's a cooperative, right? It's just a cooperative that consists of people or maybe of other organizations, and where decisions in that organizations are made collectively. We do have cooperatives, and hundreds and thousands of them all over the place, and they do work. It's just the method of enforcing those decisions, or perhaps collecting information about those decisions, is codified in the laws that we have about those cooperatives and organizations. Blockchains simply allow us to enforce those rules slightly differently, enforce them online, and they give us the ability to enforce those decisions in a decentralized way, in a Web3 way, where, you know, literally no one else could potentially cast your vote for you. Again, given that you followed all the security protocols and your private keys are not leaked, right? Again, we have to think about what is the real problem here. What are the problems that real users have? Do cooperatives, like destination management organizations, perhaps, is that a problem for them that they cannot cast their vote online in a completely decentralized way? Perhaps for some countries, some jurisdictions, some corrupt environments, that would be a real problem, and blockchain and Web3 can help those people, certainly. Again, given that they would receive a certain amount of education on how to create crypto wallets, how to control your private keys in a safe and secure manner. So definitely there is a potential. Do we have real DAOs right now in the travel space? I would say no. Perhaps in the next 5 to 10 years, we will see those organizations arising on the blockchain. Again, there should be a tremendous amount of education that should be done in the travel space and elsewhere, of course, because for me personally, Web 2.5 doesn't quite work. And you know, just going back to the Ticketmaster example, I see how the buzzword of NFTs and Web3 and blockchain can help you with marketing, can help you create a little bit of an inbound demand. But if at the end of the day, I am the fan and I bought this NFT, or I received that NFT somehow and I have it in my email, I'm not a real owner of that. There is no blockchain validation of that, right? So someone else really controls that information and has that information. So for me, that's not really Web3. That's, it's a cute little experiment that doesn't follow sort of this Web3 principles. As I stated, in the beginning of our conversation, Web3 is all about ownership of that data. If you have an NFT in your email, that's not your NFT. As simple as that.
So how do you provide American Airlines customers with ownership of their data through your platform, for example?
So there are certain pieces of information that will allow those companies that we partner with to control, right? Certainly right now, those tickets that we help, American Airlines to sell, they are not sold as NFTs, because again, in order for us to do that, each and every user who would receive those tickets should be able to wield, a crypto wallet, and they don't. And again, simply, there's no demand for that, and it's still a very high barrier for most people to overcome. But those companies that use the technology that we created, they control certain aspects of their company identity on the blockchain, and that's how we can help them overcome again certain problems that they have in the B2B travel environment.
Okay, so and I think Addy, from your point of view, at the moment you working more on a B2B adoption of this rather than B2C, is that correct?
So to be very precise, we are B2B2C. So we are as a business, right? So we're getting revenue from we get a percentage from what our customers think, right? And our customers actually work with the consumers. Just to quickly comment on what Maksim mentioned, I fully agree that an NFT in the email is definitely not, it's an NFT, but it's an NFT which is not owned by this person who received this email, right? So basically there is no much sense in that. Yeah. But on the other hand, there is sense, because you need to onboard people. And what we see, and I continuously talk about Ticketmaster, but just because they kind of they are so big and they implemented NFTs and token gating, and that's why it's a good example, right? So this kind of sending emails to sending NFTs with emails, on the other hand, makes sense, because this is the way how you can onboard people, right? Emails is what everybody is used to, and if they, right, at the very first step, get it as an email. But for example, in order to fully use all of the privileges it gives, right, and it provides, they need to go through a certain process of installing a Web3 wallet, right? And yeah, this makes a little more sense, right? And there are a lot of talks about onboarding right now in Web3, and the problem of most of the internet users not having Web3 wallets, and bad user experience of MetaMask and others. And that's why we see Coinbase and others kind of, and all of the big brands in Web3 working on their own wallets right now, so that it's easy and stuff like that, right? So we are still there, right? But I would say that we need this very simple Web2 onboarding tools in order to onboard people to Web3 and educate them, or give them the motivation to educate themselves. Like with Bitcoin, people just receive motivation because their dollars lose value, right? And they go and find out about that. So yeah.
And Maksim, is there like an AI application or something like that can help users onboard them into this kind of world of Web 3, or is it kind of Google YouTube and see what kind of videos come up, or how would people, because there's people here on this call, some are involved in Web3, many are students who are in the tourism or the event space. So, you know, how would they deal with this issue in the future? But I'm just thinking about onboarding people, as Addy's just said. I mean, what is that process right now? Is it easy? Is it hard?
It's you know, it's not rocket science. It really is not. It's there are a few simple rules. Surprisingly, and I don't know why, a lot of people that I know struggled with it, and sort of they had to do it for work or whatever. That people struggle with it. A lot of people don't sort of understand sort of user experience of that. In terms of AI doing that, I think there's a little bit of a paradox here, because if someone has the motivation, and if a company, let's say, is investing significant amounts of money into onboarding users onto something, they would want to extract some sort of value from that onboarding somehow. So, and I think, you know, to me, and I know I'm a bit idealistic in that regard, but I absolutely loved this selfless act of Satoshi Nakamoto, who created the first Bitcoin blockchain, right? Who just gave it to all the users on the planet for free, no strings attached, no nothing, you know. But the catch here is that you have to motivate yourself, you have to educate yourself, and if someone else is doing the education and motivates you, hey, maybe they want something out of you at the end of the day, and perhaps they are attaching some strings to you in that regard, right? And they will use those strings later somehow. So yeah. And to me, just a quick note, to me, AI and blockchain, they live on the opposite sides of the spectrum, where the blockchain, as I again said in the very beginning, is a technology for empowering people and individuals. And AI can only help big companies, because, again, in order to train AI, in order to operate a decent AI, you have to have a large data set, you have to have a big data center. And of course, we see from OpenAI and ChatGPT right now that they receive billions and billions of dollars to run that, right? And so, but in order to use the blockchain, you don't need money at all.
Okay, so just before I did this this session today, over the last few days, I've looked at some blockchain and some different websites, including, you know, the two that you work with. And what I find is that the language used by the people on those websites is kind of like quite technical. And like I said right in the beginning, like, explain it to me like I'm your grandmother. And maybe that's an adoption problem, is because the industry is using industry speak. And we've got people, students in this conversation, and we've used DAO, we've used blockchain, you know, and it's a little bit more complex than, I mean, to understand than just, so that's the name, but without an example. Also, what would you say, Addy, about, you know, what should proponents of Web3, whether they students or people in travel or tourism industry or events, what should they be thinking about in terms of how to understand this, what it can do for their businesses, or even what it can do for their careers? And then I'll come to you, Maksim, on your comments there.
So the question is about using like all of this crypto Web3 words, like when talking about Web3 and when actually building products and services, right? So that's the thing. And the question is, what should we do with that? Yeah. So that's okay. I mean, I totally agree with you. There is a problem, and we are kind of you know, building stuff without thinking sometimes about people that I mean, in the normal world don't even understand that, right? And still Bitcoin is something new for people. and they don't really understand that. And then we start using Web3 or tokens or token gating or all this kind of NFTs and stuff, right? So there are lots of discussions at different events about the user experience and user interfaces that should be very much like Web2 in terms of words and phrasings, right, and stuff like that. And yeah, we are also trying to keep to that. Yeah, and the interface that we are building, we're trying to use the Web2 words, if we can call them this way. Yeah, and I guess, I mean, from the business perspective, it's just the understanding and making the user researches, right? So, for example, the last interface that we have done, we've shown to different users, right? And that's what we did, and we got their feedback on where they understand stuff or where they don't, and that's the way we are going. But I mean, it's a problem, and it's just a matter of going public, right? Going and working with companies like American Airlines, for example, like Maksim is mentioned, right? And yeah, getting feedback and improving.
Thank you. And Maksim, you know, that's my question to you as well for the travel and tourism, because you are going to be a contributor to the second conference, Web3 and Travel. I mean, what are these kind of conversations going to be held there about how to communicate Web3 in the travel industry? How do people use it? You know, those kinds of things.
You know, I wish that was the case. Hopefully it's not going to, the conference is not going to be just about companies bragging about whatever they're building. But, you know, I wholeheartedly agree that you look at things that people say on their websites, and it's all about, it's just some technical terms that's what I'm saying. For a person on the street, they mean absolutely nothing. This is how we put them off. And but again, the concept is not complicated. It's not hard. Very easy to explain to a 10-year-old, to I don't know, to an elderly person. And I think there is a variety of reasons, because there is this Cold War, there is this arms race between all sorts of different blockchain projects and protocols, and everyone's trying to look smarter and, you know, more innovative and stuff. And certainly there are many things in the Web3 space that are happening that are absolutely on the fringe of innovation. You know, how do we fix, not right now, definitely not today, but in 10 years' time, how do we fix problems of democracy? How do we organize in large groups and in an effective manner? You know, if I borrow the words of Yuval Harari or Dunbar, how do we do that? And those are very complex. But that's the websites, and that's the projects that are sort of academical, right? That is the research. And certainly there are many smart people thinking about very, very smart things that I don't even try to understand, right? But it's been 12 years, and certainly we should start having products and projects in the Web3 space that would appeal to mere mortals. We should start doing that. But all of that starts with education. You know, if you know, there's one thing that people are going to take you know, home after this conversation is educate yourself. I mean, the world is becoming more and more complicated. The flow of information is increasing every time. The terminology, the buzzwords, the words that we use to describe certain things are, I mean, 10 years ago, we wouldn't imagine that we would have, I don't know, Telegram and emojis and stickers in our day-to-day vocabulary. Those things are not hard to understand, but yeah, we just have to continue learning.
Thank you. So we're kind of at the end of the panel now, but we've got 10 minutes left for some questions from the attendees. So you've got Addy and Maksim here. If you've got any questions in particular, if they're about events, probably Addy, and if they're about travel and tourism, probably Maksim, or it could be a general question on the meaning of a word or an abbreviation that I've been questioning today. And do we have any questions from anybody? You should be able to, I think you can put your hand up, Luca. Can people put their hands up in this conversation to ask a question?
Yeah, we can.
Yes, yes.
Okay, we have a hand up from Yaka.
Yeah, thank you, James. I will do a thing here. First, I will share my screen because we have another gift to give, and we have only 8 minutes to give it, because as we are talking about Web3 space, we said, okay, let's create one NFT for people that can a little bit onboard today to the Web3 space. One interesting point that Maksim said and was said before, of course, today probably most of you don't have a blockchain wallet, so POAP is great because you can collect the NFT with an email, but you don't actually own it yet. You just reserve your space. You just reserve it. So once afterwards, when we finish with this panel, you can create your own blockchain wallet and then actually collect your NFT. So the first step to the process is to download the app, the POAP app, in the App Store or in the Google Play Store or the Apple Store. It's just as you see on the screen, POAP app. And once you are inside the app, you can click on this button here. It says Mint, and then you select secret word. And today's secret word is Web3 will eat travel. It has to be written exactly like that. And you have, I think, until 6:15 to actually collect the POAP. I will put this screen, it's here. If you have any questions, write it in the chat. And then I have one question to start off the Q&A. It's just interesting for me that nobody mentioned what NFT tickets allow for the second-hand market. As I see that this is one of the biggest opportunities for event organizers to actually earn more money in their efforts to organize an event, or am I seeing this wrong? Maybe Addy, you can start.
Yeah, you're right. So I mean, it's very connected with the fraud and all this kind of problems, right? And the interoperability, right? So right now, for example, a big ticketing company, right, has problems with the secondary markets, right? And they have problems with promising additional revenues to organizers from the secondary markets. With NFTs and smart contracts, it's easily programmable, right? And the only problem here might be the exploit of the smart contract, right? That's the only thing. But in fact, yes, it's easy. And if you are a music concert, and if you have like a community, or your tickets and your events are popular, yeah, you can earn in royalties from secondary markets the same or even more than during selling tickets to the event, right? For example, Elton John announced his goodbye tour. I guess I mentioned that already. So if, for example, he does it as, if he sells them as NFTs, right, and that's the last concert of Elton John, I will bet that and assume that his fans, would love to collect these NFTs, right? And yeah, and there is a secondary market for that, right? And from each transaction, like for example, you send your NFT to another person and he pays you like, I don't know, 1/8 for that, right? So you can receive, for example, 5% royalties from that. So yeah, there is a whole big secondary market for this. And this is definitely a very big game changer for the revenue generation for event organizers. That's 100%.
Excellent. So I'm installing the app right now, Luca. So thank you for the freebie. Do we have any other questions before? We've got 3 minutes left. Has anybody got a question about travel and tourism? No?
If no one, I will go. If no one else has a question, I will go.
Okay, please. Thanks, Luca.
Let's suppose that I'm not, but let's suppose that, for instance, I'm like a manager of a hotel. So I'm working in the hospitality industry. Practically, what could they do to embrace Web3 technologies and gain advantage from it? Feel free to do any example about it.
I guess it's more a question to Maksim, right?
Yeah, there's well, first and foremost, they have to be able to understand the technology, what it's all about, and as I said, it's all about the control of the ownership of data. And again, there's a number of problems that we could start solving, but again, the sort of the catch here is that a single hotel for a single hotel, Web3 as a technology is, I would say, quite useless. They obviously could start taking Ethereum or Bitcoin as a form of payment, or maybe stable coins if they desire to do so. Although the target audience for that is quite small right now, so I don't know how beneficial would that be for them. But there are problems that if we start solving them collectively, again, Web3, and you may have read it online already, Web3 fundamental is a technology that allows us to organize together, right? So a blockchain with only one user doesn't make any sense. Definitely Web3 and blockchain is a network technology, and the more users of a certain platform you have, the more beneficial it is for everyone who participates in that. And so, and we discussed it over the course of the years, with many players and many different conferences. But let's say a problem of fake reviews. Hotels that we talk to say, of course it's a big problem, because anyone can leave a bad review on my website or my Google whatever account, Google Maps account or something like that, and vice versa. They could write a positive review for their own hotel, and in fact it's a huge industry, and it's $1 billion industry right now that is harming at the end of the day the consumers, right? What do we do about it? Again, there's a number of ways we could do it. We could just issue legislation, and we could really try to instill those rules through, legal ways. Or we could be on the blockchain. But in that case, we all have to be on the blockchain, right? Because it doesn't make sense for you to only communicate with your users and have genuine reviews like that. So yeah, just one example of a problem. I've seen many hands now.
Yeah, I have another question, if there's still time.
Please go ahead.
Last question, thank you.
Oh, okay. So basically this is a question maybe more for Addy about NFT royalties. Like, there have been like really big issues in royalties and complications, and yeah, we found out that platforms are like not obliged to like encourage royalties, and I wanted like just your opinion. How do you think this would impact like also the event industry and event organizers? Like, how do you think we can, because royalties are a big thing also for event organizers, like in terms of reselling and for creators. Like, how are you handling this, or did you already like implement something like that? Just curious.
Thanks for the question. So you mean the regulation problems, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is a problem, and there is no solution to this right now. Because it's regulation, it's law, right? So if it comes up, like with right now we see with crypto, right? If it comes up, what can you do about it? Yeah. So it's about governments and about it's actually about government. So when pitching our product, when selling our product to event organizers right now, we hear that problem, especially in US. I mean, it's not, I mean, this is simply where we are not even pitching that, because I mean, royalties is something that can, in the future, can be considered as a security by the SEC. So no one really wants right now to do that. So this is a problem. But there are certain locations where, I mean, it's doable, all right? And there is no like certain laws preventing you from doing that. So answering your question, there is no solution to this. There are a few things you can do from the legal perspective, like in terms and conditions and the contracts and everything that a person signs and ticks, like checks, like right, when he buys a ticket. But still, it's more like it's not a full solution, right? It's more like a keeping organizers and the event platform more safe, right? Let's call it this way. But I mean, to be honest, I don't have a certain answer to that. The answer is there is a problem, and in different countries, I would say many countries, that can be banned, but still, there are lots of countries where it's still possible.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just going to hand over to Jacka now, because we've come to the end of the session and he'd like to say a few words.
Yeah, thank you, James. Thank you for moderating this debate. Thank you to the guests, Maksim and Addy. You're great. Thank you for all the insights. This was kind of the first event that we organized as University of Primorska, Faculty of Tourism Studies, Turistica, the sTOUdio Turistica program, and with collaboration with Luca from the University of Westminster from London. And thank you for all the support to our professors, to Dejan and to Joseph's. Thank you for allowing us to collaborate. Just one more slide where you will see sTOUdio Turistica. So again, talking about Web3, we will do that in June. We are planning a physical event. So it's going to be a living learning lab. It's a 6-day adventure in a rural environment, and we will do a few of regenerative activities, innovation and trends in tourism, so Web3, AI, and of course, just trying to bring community together to have fun and stuff like that. So I will include more information about this in a final email that we're going to send you with a recording of this session and stuff like this. This is it from my side and from our side. Thank you everyone for joining in, for listening, and hopefully to see you in the next events of sTOUdio Turistica.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.